Well, I mean, at least in terms of its adherence to free speech, shall we say. I'm not throwing any shade at the institution of the University of East Anglia, but, well, I mean, in light of recent events, it would seem that they have a little bit of, shall we say, damage control to do with their student union at the university campus, because turns out their university student union is a little bit mental, because seemingly they don't want to, uphold free speech, which I thought was the kind of purpose of going to university, and that you learn the values of free speech and the diversity of views in this damnable world. But clearly the student union of East Anglia doesn't agree with me. I don't know really why. I mean, that they wouldn't really be allowed to, build themselves up to the point where they are now in their campus if it wasn't for the glorious value of free speech. But seems they've gone on a bit of a tirade over the last year and a half, going somewhat mental in that they've banned God knows how much stuff, really, to be honest, on the campus of the University of East Anglia. Just for context, by the way, I'm just going to be looking over to my second screen here on my main computer, just to be looking at some articles that I'm going to be providing for evidence to support why I think the University of East Anglia's student union has gone absolutely batshit insane. I mean, of course, the most prominent and most recent example of this, and the most current one in people's minds, will be the fact that the University of East Anglia has recently put a stop to the throwing of motorboards, which seems a bit sullen, really. I mean, it's been such a culture of university life for so long. I would see it as a bit sad if it was banned across the board. I don't really see why it's been banned at the University of East Anglia. I mean, I'm looking at the BBC News article of it now, and it's supposedly down to health concerns. I mean, the health concerns really of throwing a square hat up in the sky and having it fall down doesn't really seem as dangerous as, say, I don't know, when a charity in New Mexico released thousands of balloons into the air a few years ago over a publicity stunt. Or, I don't know, how about when Jägermeister a few years ago created a ice party with dry ice in a chlorine pool. Yeah, I would say those are health concerns. I mean, they are pretty dangerous. Chlorine and dry ice should not be mixed at all, and thousands of balloons being released into the air in a busy air control zone is definitely a no-no, I'd say. But I mean, really? Throwing your motorboards into the air when you've just finished a 3 or 4 year course, depending on the course that you've studied, and you've just celebrated possibly the greatest few years in your young life, you're really not allowed to celebrate it as you wish by, throwing your hat up into the air, throwing your cares away to the sky, and just celebrate like a young person should be able to do, like they should be able to do, in that they should just release themselves of the chains of being weighed down by worries and being scared at all during their time at university. And now they're free. Now they can release their hat to the sky, and now they can't because they apparently studied at the University of East Anglia, and apparently that's a bit of a health concern. I mean, seemingly, or according to reports, in each of the last 2 years, students have suffered facial injuries, and last year one person needed treatment in A&E. One person over the last 2 years. I'm supposing they tried to fucking eat their motorboard then. And I mean, really, the excuses given for this is just so boilerplate, and that it's just for the sake of health and safety reasons, without any specific core reasons as to why this is unsafe, even though it quite clearly is just a massive overreaction to a few specific cases of people seemingly throwing their motorboards up into the air and catching them with their fucking eyeballs. I mean, Jesus Christ, man, have a bit of, freedom and creativity to yourself. And this isn't just in the University of East Anglia either. Some UK universities, including Cambridge, Bristol, Durham, Newcastle and St Andrews, do not require their students to wear motorboards. The reason for this is unclear, but is sometimes rumoured to be down to being men abandoning their caps in protest at women being admitted to universities. Now, this, of course, is very different to the use of caps being banned for health and safety reasons. But the idea that health and safety reasons would at all play into the throwing up of motorboards into the air, motorboards into the air seems a little bit, boilerplate, in that it just seems to be very, overly worrying. I mean, how do you get to a creative point in your life? How do you reach the creative id that you want to reach in life, where you can truly express yourself and be free with your emotions and feelings, if you're not allowed to do something as simple as throwing your hat up into the air when you've just spent 3 or 4 years studying your favourite subject to hopefully one day land your dream job? I mean, it just seems like a bit of a depressing scenario whereby I'm not allowed to celebrate my achievements as I may want just by throwing my hat up into the air. I mean, of course I don't go to the University of East Anglia, but it does seem like a worrying trend that a lot more universities are banning things like this just based on the fact that it's dangerous to health and safety, when it really is just based on a few case examples where extreme circumstances resulted in a person getting injured. Motorboards are not that dangerous, people. You just I don't understand what the reasoning is behind this, other than just being overly worrying busybodies. I mean, for God's sake, on the Daily Mail article on this subject, you will see that graduating students told to mind throwing motorboards caps in the air and then pay £8 to have them photoshopped in later case anyone is injured by the falling hats at the University of East Anglia. So, seems pretty cynical that the one way you can be shown to have your hats thrown in the air if you're studying at the University of East Anglia is if you pay £8 for it. So, okay, you get your theoretical health and safety, protected by, the busybodying of your student union, but, £8, really? Does that seem like worth it? Does it really seem worth it at all to protect your health and safety concerns? That you have to mime an action that is as easy as raising your arm for £8? Really? You're really using this opportunity of bullshit health and safety concerns to get more money out of your students when they're already paying up to £9,000 a year? Really? That doesn't seem slimy at all to anyone here, does it? And this isn't just the only thing that's been going down at the University of East Anglia that suggests that there's this culture of anti-free speech there, and it's quite concerning, really. I mean, not only have they banned risky motorboard throwing, but they've also seemingly gone towards the extent of not so much concentrating on the improvement of student living conditions on campus, or the improvement of societies, or the improvement of, say, facilities at certain individual schools at their university, but have gone so far to go out of their role of authority to boycott firms that aid Israeli military and settlements, according to concreteonline.co.uk. Again, you might see the reasoning behind this in that many do disagree with a lot of the actions that Israel has taken over the years in accordance to its military settlements around the Middle East, but I would argue that it's a bit out of the order of authority, shall we say, of a university student union to be boycotting the military actions of a military sovereign nation. It's not really like they have any solid power over the state of Israel, is it? I mean, when you consider that this has been going on since 2012 and that they still haven't really caused much policy change in Israel in accordance to this policy, and that they've been concentrating more on this, according to some students in recent months, over the improvement of student facilities, is somewhat worrying. Not only this, but you then have the downright petty actions that the University of East Anglia's student union has been taking in recent years, and I'm not going to say the boycotting of Israel is petty, because it's a very real, tangible political belief that a lot of people do hold, and regardless of whichever side you may stand on that debate, it's clearly a very big structural reform that some would say is very, very important to protecting the rights of people abroad, and some might say that's, well, is worth, protesting for. Some might say that the Student Union of East Anglia is well within its rights to be protesting that. I mean, I would say it's a bit out of its authority, but if they want to go for it, knock themselves out, to be honest. I mean, it's a bit aimless, really, considering they've done it since 2012. It still hasn't yielded any major results. But what really can't speak to me as being, particularly virtuous or at all worth protesting is the banning of Mexican sombreros from a Mexican restaurant in Freshers Week at the beginning of the 2015-16 academic year by the Student Union of East Anglia. And this is possibly one of the worst examples of the banning of free speech at any university I've seen in recent times, as these sombreros were given out at the University of East Anglia's Freshers Week at the beginning of the 2015-16 academic year by a local Mexican restaurant called Pedro's. The University of East Anglia's Student Union, the Campaigns and Democracy Officer Chris Jarvis stood by the decision and insisted that the Student Union wants all members to feel safe and accepted by ensuring there is no behaviour, language or imagery which could be considered racist at events. He added, at the fair, the Student Union's fair, or the Freshers' Fair, all of our stallholders were sent a copy of our advertising policy prior to the event, and were also given a physical copy of the policy on the day. So we're confident that all stallholders should have been aware of our restrictions on advertising in relation to equal opportunities and cultural appropriation. Now, of course, some might say cultural appropriation is a terrible thing, and in some cases, some might say it certainly is. But the thing is, it hasn't really been a major centre point of cultural, popular culture since, say, probably 50, 60 years ago. And considering the fact that these were handed out by an actual Mexican restaurant makes me think that this is more so a fact of overreaction to a certain standpoint of cultural interpretation, rather than outright cultural appropriation. And when you consider that this was done as a free publicity stunt, not even directly for profits, then it does seem a bit overreactionary to be, banning the distribution of a certain love of culture by a business that isn't even represented by you at all. I don't know. I mean, it's just me personally speaking from an individual perspective, of course. You mean there's the fact that the chairman of the British Mexican Society told The Independent that these are not funny hats in Mexico, but are a part of national costume which are worn in several contexts, including Mexican roderos, are musicians, and are sold to visitors all over the world. No Mexican we know would oppose these being given out by a restaurant trying to attract people to savour Mexican cuisine. I'll just leave that to sink in for a moment. It seems like it's not Mexican food I smell. It's the smell of bullshit. University of East Anglia Student Union. do you have to say to that? The fact that, actual Mexican people and who are studying at your university or universities across, Britain, doesn't seem like they're that upset. Or, the fact that these hats are actually quite resemblant of actual sombreros that are used in Mexican cultural religious events like Cinco de Mayo. Yeah, seems like you're full of shit. Seems like you're just banning free speech because it makes you feel better. In fact, actually, you know what? Let's go on to another example of that. What about the time when they banned a UKIP candidate from speaking at the University of East Anglia over 2 years ago? Does that smell of more bullshit? Whoa, it's pungent. Let's see, the University of East Anglia has now decided it will reschedule the event after an outcry by the party. So they clearly banned this UKIP political candidate who was debating, not platforming, just debating, and then decided to have a U-turn on it and allow the man to speak anyway. Douglas Cresswell said the initial decision smacked of people wanting to ban ideas and prevent free speech after Norwich's University of East Anglia called off the event at short notice. The debate at which UKIP's Norwich South General Election candidate Steve Emmons was due to speak was organised not by the university but its Political Debating Society. The event prompted more than 1,150 people to sign a petition urging the university to ban the political party from the University of East Anglia campus. Last night it's been announced that the debate has been postponed on a technicality because it's not been officially approved, but today the university said that following an investigation the event would be rescheduled. So, not only is the University of East Anglia seemingly willing to ban a simple movement of emotional candidation in the form of throwing your motorboards in the air, not only is it willing to ban the use of sombreros, a legitimate and genuine article of Mexican cultural heritage and celebration at a time of celebration, i.e. the Freshers' Fair, but it also seems like they're unwilling to accept any political views that they might seem as being a bit contradictory. Doesn't that smack of democracy and free speech? I mean, come on, people. Even if you disagree with the United Kingdom Independent Party, you have to allow them their flat platform of freedom of speech on the same equal, flat level of equality of opportunity as any other political freedom movement in any sphere of speech in this country, regardless of whether they might be right or left-wing. I mean, I don't personally like UKIP myself, but at the same time I would still say that they deserve the same level of equality of equal speech and freedom of speech as the Green Party, the Labour Party, the Conservative Party, the Liberal Democrat Party, because if you're banning someone on the basis of their political ideology, you're not proving anything, you're just proving that you don't want to argue with them. And I think this is somewhat reinforced by this rambling of the fact that the University of East Anglia seems to have this attitude against free speech that over half of universities have banned or censored ideas, and surprisingly enough, one of the universities included in this survey is the University of East Anglia. And I think there's this list here on the Telegraph from about a few days ago, actually, in fact, which lists a great veritable number of universities that are quite easily among some of the most politicking, busybodying universities in Britain, in the sense that they have banned ideas that they seem inappropriate or contradictory to a safe space, and unsurprisingly, based on the three-way step of of Spiked Online's judgment of freedom of speech at universities, whereby you're judged as either green, amber or red, it's unsurprising that out of the 3 points that, or 3 acts that the University of East Anglia made on the freedom of speech last year, or over the course of this academic year, that all 3 of them were in the red category. Their student union ranking is red, their university's ranking is amber, and their institution ranking is red. So if we judge this on the basis of the model that Spiked Online are using, East Anglia University's red seems very prominent, in the sense that they don't want to really embrace free speech because it might allow the possibility of ideas that might be seen as troubling or triggering or contradictory to a free speech, as they see it, in that free speech is a safe space governed by safe and comfortable ideas. Look, I know this video is a bit rambling and I know it's a bit crumbly and sort of just bullshitty, but the thing is, this really worries me, because I thought university was supposed to be a place for free speech. It's supposed to be an area for growing yourself by encountering ideas that you see as troubling or contradictory to your own, and then battling against them through debate and through speech and through ideas crisscrossing with one another, not through censorship and ideas that we should not speak out. Why do so many universities want to appropriate this? I mean, this isn't just University of East Anglia. Oxford University has been accused of censoring freedom of speech when its student union banned a free speech magazine because it was offensive. And that's not recently. This was almost 9 months ago. This happened around October 2015. And yet, repeatedly, we see universities or the student unions at these universities banning the idea of free speech because it seems troubling, or because it allows the ideas that might be seen as contradictory to be triggering, or contradictory to freedom of speech that they see as being entirely dominated by one view that allows free speech to be dominated by a safe space. Universities should be a coven of free speech. They should be allowing free speech to flourish and generate this bountiful flower of ideas that contradict each other, that clash, that battle against each other, and that debate should be the core concern for universities. Instead, I see universities time after time after time banning freedom of speech because it's seen as troubling or because it's seen as offensive. I'm sorry, but you're talking out of your arse. I would say it's more offensive to ban freedom of speech because it shows that you don't care for your students' freedom. It only shows that you do not want to be debated with, that you want to protect your safe space, and that you want to be ensured your quality of life safe from being worried about anything. Universities should not operate like this. They should be allowed to debate whatever they want. Whether it be the throwing of a motorboard in the air, whether it be the selling of sugar, whether it should be the debating of the merit of Israel's military exploits in the Middle East, whether it should be the selling of sombreros, whether it should be the debating of the merit of a certain UKIP candidate's political position. Or maybe we should just not go to university, because seemingly that seems to be more so the case often than not with a lot of people, considering how politically stagnant a lot of these places are becoming. And it's worrying for me as well, because I'm still got a year at university, and I want to enjoy it. I want to debate openly, and I want to, allow people who are opposing to me the same level of freedom of speech that I have. But I see more and more universities banning ideas that they might see as unsafe or offensive, just based on a personal grudge or a personal gripe or a seeming perspective that isn't based on logic or reason, but based on concern. And I just feel like, while I can understand the concerns about, you know, what one might see as being troublesome, you've ultimately just got to allow it. You've just allow people to throw their motorboards up into the air. Allow people to speak out in defence of Israel, even if you don't agree with it. Allow people to be selling sombreros from Mexican restaurants in the wake of a student freshers' fair. Allow your candidates that visit your campus to speak what they might well very see as being massively contradictory or offensive to you. Then debate them and disprove their argument through debate. Don't just ban them because you see it as troubling. Honestly, I see universities more and more now as just being a hotbed of just safe spaces, just censorship and just absolute, just stodgy, worrying busybodies, and it just really depresses me. And the fact that the University of East Anglia has fallen so far into this rut and has become one of the worst ranked universities in the country in terms of freedom of speech. The fact that this is happening more so now than ever in history, even in a day and age of liberty and freedom of speech and social democracy, is just depressing. It really is depressing. And I hope it stops. And I hope that you guys have maybe to some degree enjoyed this video. It's a bit rambling and bullshitty, but I don't know, guys. I just had to speak out on this. It was just something I really felt like I had to say, and I know some people might be a bit offended by this, but fuck it.